I'd like to do today, basically every time we gather, we pick one interpretation, one commentary to be the main focus of our discussion. Today, I wanted to focus on the commentary of my Zayda, my ancestor going back 10 generations, Elimelech of Lezhensk. So we're going to look at the commentary of the Noam Elimelech. And if we have time, we'll look at his commentary both on Miketz and also on the menorah, the power of a menorah. And he really is actually sharing the same thought in about both of them. So if we have time, we'll be able to get to both of them. But before that, let me just give a little bit of an introduction for people who are not familiar with the Hasidic interpretations of the Torah. And the Noam Elimelech is really the first book to take this type of approach of the Hasidic masters, an approach where the words don't mean what we think they mean when we read the text. That basically we depart willingly and intentionally from the literal reading of the text to find in the words meaning if we go by the way they're spelled, and not by what they literally mean here. And so we mine the texts for deeper messages. Why? Because the Rebbe Elimelech and the Hasidic masters following him is trying to find a hidden message within the text, and also a message that could speak to people in their lives where they are. He's trying to translate the powerful ideas of the Torah and the spiritual secrets of Sod, of secret ideas, of Kabbalistic, mystical ideas, and bring them out to this community in a way that they would find inspiring. So last time we gathered for Parasha, we looked at this opening paragraph, and we saw how the Dudai Ruvain found a message about the importance of gratitude. But the Noam Elimelech is going to look at those same words and bring a different message out. And I just want to review some of the words here, because he's going to highlight these same words and pull out different meanings from them. So first, I'll just read a few of the psukim. He says, it was at the end of 2 years. And Pharaoh had a dream. And Pharaoh was standing by the banks of the river. From the river Oros, Sheva Paros Yefos Mara Brios Basar. From the river went up 7 cows, beautiful appearance, healthy flesh, Vaterena Ba'achu. And they were grazing in the marsh. And then V'nei Sheva Paros Acheros, 7 other cows, Oros Acharayim, went up after them, Minhai Or, from the marsh, Ra'os Mareh, they were hard to look at, Dakos Basar, thin flesh, Batamona Itza Paros Asfasai Or. And they were standing next to the cows by the banks of the river. So let's see what Rebbe Elimelech does with these words. It's going to, if you're not familiar with Rebbe Elimelech's approach, it's going to be a little bit mind-boggling and culture shock. But once you get used to it and you delve into it, you'll see the absolute brilliance. So Rebbe Elimelech writes as follows. First of all, he says, I don't understand why it says, he starts with the first words of the portion. Why does it say, Vayhi Miketz Shenatayim Yamim? It could have just written, Vayhi Miketz Shtei Shanim. It could have just written, it was at the end of 2 years. Why does instead it say, Shenatayim Yamim? Now, technically speaking, it's not a question, because Yamim, in the Bible, Rashi, what he tells us, doesn't mean days, it means years. But Rebbe Elimelech is posing it as a question, because oftentimes Yamim means days. And also the more natural word, what it should have been Shanim, as Shana, year. So he's asking this question. Why does it say at the end of Shnatayim Yamim? And so Rabbi Elimelech, I'm going to suggest the direction he's going to go in, and then I'm going to read it to you. But he's going to highlight the fact that Yamim refers to our day and our responsibility as Jews every single day of our lives. And the word Shnatayim is a reference to two things that we're supposed to unify every single day. Ultimately, Rabbi Elimelech is about bringing unity to our lives, bringing unity to God, meaning uniting humans with God, uniting Jews with other Jews, uniting the world, uniting the different ways in which the world functions. And if we have time to get to his message on Hanukkah, that's what he's going to argue is the primary message of Hanukkah is uniting the different aspects of our life in a spiritual manner to make us a complete person and to make our focus in the world complete. That's in one sentence what he's trying to say, that all of our lives should be working towards a common goal, which is serving God. But that's what he argues is the message of Hanukkah and the lighting of the candles. But now let's go back and read some of what he says, and I'll pause a few minutes into it to take questions. So it says, "Vayihi Miketz Shnatayim Yamim." V'nira. So he says it could have written at the end. By the way, Noam Elimelech, I should say, the very, very difficult commentary, very, very difficult Hasidic commentary, because he's writing at the beginning of Hasidic commentary, and his work, I don't know how well his students edited it, so it wasn't really, and his concepts are very deep, and he writes them in an elliptical manner, so it's not a simple, some Hasidic texts are very simple. This is, I think, for me, it's one of the more challenging ones. So he says, V'nira Lefarish, he says, we can explain. Why does it say Shnatayim Yamim instead of Shtei Shamim? He says we can explain it through what's called remez. Remez means through basically a secret it's written not directly. Indirectly, the Torah is teaching us something. That a tzaddik, Rabbi Elimelech is often talking about the responsibility of a tzaddik. Tzaddik is maybe there's one or two in any generation who represent the direct connection to God. That the Hasidim are able to find this link to Hashem through the tzaddik, through their teacher, who they believe has a very special connection. So the tzaddik tzarech avod tamim Hashem yisbarach baruch hu. The tzaddik, this righteous person who has a special connection with God, this person is obligated to always work to combine to serve Hashem. The tzaddik's primary job in life is to always work to combine to serve God by combining the different aspects of the world. And there are two primary aspects of the world according to Rabbi Elimelech: the physical and the spiritual. Meaning to say, and this is what Rabbi Elimelech says, B'chol davar she'oseh, with everything he does, whether it's eating or drinking, everything's physical, that his intent needs to be tzarich liot kavanato u'ma'aleh ba'olamot ha'alyonim v'kavanat yichudim alyonim. That with everything he does, his intent needs to be to do this, let's say to eat or to drink, in order to come closer to God, and also, and so therefore, meaning to say, his intent, he's supposed to eat and drink with incredible intentionality, as to saying that by doing this, he's performing a spiritual act, and nothing is done without thought, and everything is for the purpose is bringing more holiness to above and more holiness to below. What does that mean exactly? He doesn't define it here. He defines, it's really not even anywhere specifically defined so much, but the whole idea is to bring the physical into the spiritual, and to recognize that that's part of his responsibility as a tzaddik, as a leader. So he writes as follows. He says, the tzaddik has a double responsibility. One responsibility is to act in this way below. And he also, and this is a Kabbalistic idea, is of the belief that the tzaddik has the ability to combine the realms of heaven above. This is called a deep Kabbalistic idea of to be unifying the sfirot, that this divine entity is made up of different parts, and the tzaddik, by doing their actions, is able to somehow impact the divine force and bring it together. And now here's the key first place where he connects this back to the text of our Torah. This is what the tzaddik needs to do all the days of his life. If the tzaddik does this, if the tzaddik wakes up every day and combines the physical and the spiritual, somehow is able to impact God, impact the world, then the day is called a day. The day is only called a day if he was doing something meaningful that was fulfilling his mission as a tzaddik. Otherwise, it's not called a day. If he doesn't do that, the day is not called a day. Okay, it's very straight out. If you want to say you're having a day, you have to do something meaningful with your day. And that's why he's citing verses now where the Torah uses the word yamim. Like here it says, Miketz shenatayim yamim. So what we see, and I'll say to it, is he's referring to every day, even though this is not the literal text. What it means, he's pulling out those words. And he's going to say that shenatayim yamim, there is this duality that we're responsible to do every day of our life. But first he shows how other verses in the Torah refer to yamim. It says, by Abraham, Avraham zaken bar bayamim. Abraham grew older in his days, meaning to say, those days that he acted with holiness. He came to complete holiness. Baal kedusha gmura, l'madrika zaken, zeh kana chachma. That Abraham came to this extreme holiness, and that word zaken doesn't mean Abraham grew old. It means he acquired wisdom by using every day properly. And that's what our verse here means. And now he starts to explain it. Don't translate it was at the end of 2 years. What it means is pirusho kaful. It means double. It was doubled. Meaning to say, achar sheyagia tzaddik madrega zot sheyavo al sof hatikun avodato shel hayamim she avodah kfua. What it means is after the tzaddik has reached this final level of his days, which is the avodah kfua, which is the dual service, then the tzaddik has reached a complete level of holiness. I'll read that again. After the tzaddik reaches this level, that he comes to the end of his service, this completion of his service, which is this double service of combining the physical and the spiritual, then if the tzaddik does this, if the tzaddik spends a significant amount of time every day and is able to succeed in combining the physical and the spiritual, then the tzaddik will come to another level. And what's that other level? That is a higher level, even higher. So initially we start off in life as trying to combine the physical and the spiritual and connect to God. And if we do that, then we'll come to the higher level. What's after Miketz shenatayim yamim? The next 2 words in the Torah. What are those 2 words? Ufaro chaleim. And Pharaoh now we would translate that, Pharaoh had a dream. But he says, no. That's the literal, of course. That's the pshat. But on the remez, on the level of hidden, what does it mean? Ufaro chaleim means as follows. Paro in the Bible can also mean to uncover. It can mean to uncover. This is priya, pera, means uncovered. When you, God forbid, when you're a mourner, you uncover your shirt. Or a woman who's a sota, she's considered the adulterous woman, she uncovers her hair. she uncovers her hair. So that's the woman who is the sota. So the word paro, our whole life we thought it just means Pharaoh. No, he says it means uncover. That's nothing to do with Pharaoh here, is what he's saying. Pharaoh cholem, paro lashon giloy, like explains who Pharaoh Rosh Isha, the woman's head was uncovered. It means to uncover. So what that means is shenit galelo hasaga el yonah, that will be revealed if the tzaddik spends every day focusing on this duality in order to come closer to God. Then the tzaddik will reach a level where there will be revealed to him hasagot kedorot, great concepts, and the upper worlds, v'olamot elyonim. So if the tzaddik does this every day, he's going to reach incredibly great concepts and secrets of the upper worlds. And that's why it says, and Pharaoh means uncovered. And what is it? Via a dream. But what does a dream mean? Chalom, remez, chalom, de chalom hu echad mishisha min nevuah. A dream is 1/60th of prophecy. He's citing the Talmud here, Brachot 57b. And so therefore, you'll get each time what the tzaddik will get is 1/60th of an understanding of the upper world. So let me just pause and say what we've said here, because it's very, very, very deep. I want to make sure we don't lose each other. So there's these first words of the Torah, of the portion, and it was Miketz Shenatayim Yamim U'Pharaoh Cholem. It was at the end of 2 years, and Pharaoh had a dream. That's the way we always translate it. Then Noam says it means something else. It means that if a person will be, he doesn't explain the word Miketz, but he says Shenatayim Yamim, if a person will spend all their days kfula in this dual responsibility of this responsibility of combining the dual, the physical, the two aspects of life, the physical and the spiritual, into one, then it will be uncovered for him. Paro, it will be uncovered. Cholem, the prophecy, the 1/60th of the understanding of God. And so that's what he's saying so far. And then he writes as follows. And then he writes as follows, V'dibera kasuv b'hoveh. And the reason why the Torah is speaking in this example of Pharaoh having a dream is because machmas shebeshas hashena, because there's something else that's going on with the dream. Why is the Torah using the word a dream to tell us that he has 1/60th of the understanding of God? Because when a person dreams, tasur min adam koach hushim hama'akfim uso. When a person dreams, the person removes from themselves all their senses that, typically speaking, will prevent him from really accessing the divine. Meaning that when we are dreaming, we're really like hibernating. And if we're in a deep sleep, we're shut down from the physical senses around us. And therefore, that's a time to really access the upper levels of God. In fact, there's a lot of stories about Rabbi Elimelech about the power of them having dreams and thereby being able to understand something going on in the world through a dream. People visiting them in a dream is a story about Rabbi Elimelech's son, Rabbi Yaakov, who had a dream from his father that there was a woman and a man who were committing adultery, and nobody else could believe it, but he made this accusation. It turned out he was correct. That's an example. So he has this dream, and through this dream, he's able to remove these senses, and therefore the verse says, "Shenet galolo hachalom." But really, so that's why he says through this dream, he's able to ascertain things. But in truth, the real tzaddik, he's going to say, doesn't really need to be in a dream state in order to understand God. The real tzaddik who is separated from aspects of this world, and he doesn't have senses with respect to this world, the real tzaddik doesn't need to be asleep in order to have insight into God. He's able to do it while he's still awake. So those of us who are not, basically all of us except for the one or two in any generation who are able to ascertain God, the rest of us can get sometimes a glimpse into God while we're dreaming, but the tzaddik can do it while he's awake. And now he goes through the dream itself. He says as follows: V'hinei omeid al hayor. He's going to talk about the symbolism of Pharaoh's dream. What's the symbolism of Pharaoh's dream? So the symbolism is as follows: and behold, he's standing by the banks of the river. What does it mean? V'hinei omeid al hayor. Pirish hatzadik hazeh. This tzaddik, amidaso tamid eitel oros elyonim. He always needs to stand by the upper lights. So we have been reading standing by the banks of the river. He was saying actually that the river Hayor should be read as light. That the tzaddik is always standing by the light, meaning because the same word for river, Yeor, is similar to the word or, it just has an extra yud, which he'll have to explain as well. So the tzaddik is standing next to the upper lights, and Hayor means from expression of light. That's the name. The name for the upper worlds is called the name light, and there's nothing more special and powerful, symbolic than light. This is a very important, powerful message for Hanukkah, but there's nothing more powerful, no greater symbol than light. That's what he writes. And what is the extra yud of Hayor? The extra yud of Hayor hints to the fact that there were 10 upper worlds that God created. And they were created with the letter yud. Hashem created the upper worlds with the letter yud. Kiba yud, as it states in Isaiah chapter 26, Kibiyah Hashem Tzur Olamim, that this world was created. So B'yah Hashem is Yud and Hey. That this world, the lower world, was created with the Hey, but the upper world was created with the letter Yud. So that's what he's saying. It's a hint to. Again, what is the word Hayor hinting to? It's hinting to that the tzaddik is trying to gain access to the light of the Yud, of the upper worlds. And then it says that came up from the river. It says in the Torah, V'hinei min Hayor Olos Sheva Paros. There were coming up 7 cows. Well, what does that refer to? Sheva Parot. What does that refer to? So the Rebbe Elimelech is going to say that that's a reference to Peirot, fruits, is what he writes. Parot is an expression of fruits, that the tzaddik, by virtue of all their actions, is producing fruits for their labors and mitzvos. And the verse is hinting to the fact that there are many different types of tzaddikim, and each one is different, and each one has a path of their own in this world, and this world as we go for the 7 upper levels. So that's what he's saying. He's saying that this represents, the tzaddik represents, the parot represents that there are many different paths to Hashem. I'm not exactly sure how he sees that, but that's what he says. And for example, he says somebody who spends their days studying Mishnah is grabbing hold of the path to the upper world through the study of Mishnah. And somebody who studies the Talmud is grabbing hold of the path through the study of Talmud. And each one of them goes according to their path. And so there's 7 paths, 7 levels, and each one has a specific path. And so therefore, that's what he says. The Sheva Parot represents the many different paths that will take us to the upper worlds. And then he says, what do we do with the fact that it says about these cows, they are Yefot Marel Briot Basar, that they are of beautiful appearance and very healthy looking. What does that mean? It refers to the fact that the tzaddikim have this special light. Yifot marel tzaddikim. The tzaddikim have this special light, that the light of their face is always shining for everybody. Because if a person is studying Torah, their light will shine. Ubriot pasar, what does that hint to? That means to say that if a person that the tzaddik has to guard himself from sinning, God forbid that he doesn't sin. And so therefore, he will, in this case, he will be able to grab the upper levels. And it goes into the fact, it says, Briot Basar means to say that tzaddik needs to be in charge of their flesh, that tzaddik needs to protect themselves against sinning with the flesh. And this is, of course, we know a sin, unfortunately, that too many people have fallen to. I'll skip a little bit within his commentary, and because he spends a lot of time talking about the tzaddik being able to overcome the temptations of their flesh, and then he goes on to the next phrase which we had read, Vater'enu ba'achu, that they were grazing in the marshland. So how does he interpret these words? Remesh tzaddikim yeshlem ava v'reus v'achva zelazeh. So he says the word ba'achu, which means marsh, can also be expelled similar to the word achva, meaning unity. So the tzaddik brings about unity on this world and love and friendship, and that's what it's a reference to. And so, this is the tzaddik. And then it says that there's the tzaddik, and then Rabbi Elimelech writes that corresponding to this, to all these good qualities which the tzaddik has, the ability to control their flesh, the ability to bring about love and unity, the ability to have their face shining with the light of Torah, the ability to have some understanding of God. Corresponding to this, opposite this, is there are some people who are 7 different cows, meaning to say, who does this refer to? He says this refers to people who, when you look at them, you think that they're righteous. You think that they're good people, but really they have these abominable thoughts in their mind, in their heart. And these are the other cows. These represent the wickedness. And they were going up after them, meaning to say that they represent the wickedness that's fighting. He's always in a eschatological struggle for victory against the forces of wicked in the world. And so therefore, that is what he says is the primary responsibility of Joseph, to help the forces of the righteousness to overcome the forces of the wickedness. And so Joseph, and so the verse is telling us that even though they make themselves look like tzaddikim, nevertheless, Joseph was able to look into their hearts to understand the ways of the wickedness and understand the threat that they held to the world. So let me just pause here and see if anybody has any questions.